Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Richard. So I'm Christophe Glenisson. I'm the Regional Fundraising Manager for UNHCR, covering Asia-Pacific region. So I'm based in Bangkok, and we have 9 markets in the region, starting from Japan, Korea, mainland China, Hong Kong, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, and I think I named all of them. Our biggest market is, we're raising roughly around $130 million per year from this market. Korea is by far our biggest market, and then we have Japan and Australia, who are also big markets. But I mean, Thailand, Hong Kong, all these markets are also quite important for us. I mean, we definitely want to have diversified income coming from many markets, and that's why we're starting Indonesia these days. Yeah, I mean, it's the same as our colleagues and peers. 95% of our income, or at least 90% of our income, come from individual giving. Corporate is important, and we're also trying to focus on corporate. Corporate, for instance, for mainland China is definitely more important than individual giving. But yeah, all across the channel, all across the market, we're talking about individual giving donors most. Yeah. So the first thing, it's really a weird situation, Richard. If we look at short term, if we look at income-wise, our first 12 months from January to April, we're more than on target globally in our Asia-Pacific markets. We've been raising more income than 2019, and we are ahead of our plan. So it's quite a weird situation. And obviously, it's a good situation for us income-wise right now. Yes. But I'm not saying that it's not going to be the same for all 2020. So what we've seen, obviously, the biggest impact for all of us, I guess, but for UNHCR, it's on the face-to-face, side. We're we're heavily reliant on face-to-face in terms of acquisition program. Roughly, it's 2/3 of our acquisition. Okay. Some changes from one market to another, but that's roughly what we have in Asia Pacific. And so obviously there are 2 issues with the stop and the pause of the face-to-face programs, even if we're restarting again in some markets right now. Yeah. But the issue is not, it's income obviously, and more on the long term, because regular donors that we don't have, and it's going to impact our income on the future. But it's also basically, I made a quick calculation. I think we're working in-house and agencies. We're working with 600 face-to-face frontliners in Asia Pacific. Wow, right. So obviously the big challenge is, what do you do with the 600 people? Because what you want, and it has been keeping us quite busy when all this started. It's you want to protect your frontliners. You want, when the situation permits, you want to be able to be back with as many of them as possible. But then besides face-to-face, I must say that we have some really good performances on other channels. Digital has been working fantastically well. Not all markets, but I would say all markets, but 2. The difference is that obviously, and that's also a bit of the issue, that we have much more one-off donations than regular donors. Also on digital, the ratio of regular donors has decreased quite significantly. But yeah, it works well for this. But we've been trying to do DRTV. I think DRTV, there has been some opportunity on direct response TV, because obviously people staying at home, much more audience. Lead generation, we've been trying to emphasize on lead generation also because of telemarketing activity. And for the countries, the markets where we do direct mail, some quite good results on direct mail too so far. So right now, I would say besides face-to-face on the other channels, I'm not saying that it's easy everywhere, and the situation can vary from one market to another, but so far, quite good. On the recruitment, it has been impacted because of face-to-face, but good results in acquisition on other channels. On existing donor, except maybe 1-2 countries where we've seen a slight spike in attrition, donors cancellation, active cancellation. I would say we don't see that yet today. I'm not saying it's going to be the case in the months ahead, and I think it's a big question for everyone. It's a big question for us, at least. But so far, existing donor, no peak in attrition, and a very good response when we do emailing to them. COVID or not COVID, we're still trying to go on regular donors. That's a basic. And I think if we've been successful as an organization in fundraising this past year, it's because 80% of our donor base is regular donors, with obviously some differences in some markets. And you have some markets like Australia or Japan, where very good at one-off, at emergency, at direct mail. And direct mail definitely is a one-off channel. But yeah, regular donors is anyways a way to go. I think for me, the biggest issue is that it's going to be an economic crisis, but we don't know yet how it's going to impact our fundraising activities. Basically, I'm living in Thailand. What I can see in Thailand is that the poorest of the poorest are hardly hit, very, very much. We don't see our audience, which is more the middle income, has been hit, obviously, but not at the same level. The question, are they going to have a job again? What level of income they will have? And this may impact our acquisition, but may also impact on our existing donors. And we need to be prepared, and we need to have good communication plans for our donors in the weeks, or not in the weeks, but in the weeks and the months. I think face-to-face is a very resilient program. We've seen in other situations, in other countries, hit by terrorist attacks or hit by a strong and severe economic crisis, we've seen the resilience of face-to-face. So I think that face-to-face will still be there. Obviously, working in a very different way, social distancing and all these things that everybody is working on right now. What we've seen on face-to-face in the restart of some markets is that you cannot expect to have the same daily pledge rate. Maybe the average gift is going to be a bit lower. But what we've seen in some countries is that even if you are 20% lower than where you used to be before COVID, week after week, you're starting to catch up. And so I think the question again is how to stop people. And you need to think how you're going to stop people, how you're going to pitch people, how you're going to work for the payment system. What do we do with these 600 people? How do we keep them on board? How do we keep them motivated to come back when we will be able to come back in the string or in modes? How do you keep them on board because they need to make a living or a minimum of a living? And it varies obviously around depending on countries, because some countries the government is providing support, in others are not. So you have to deal with that, but it's not only with that. You need to also keep them busy. You need to keep them motivated. So what we've been trying to do, it's a lot more training. It's to have them to think about the way they're doing right now face-to-face and how it will change in the future. And the third thing is obviously to give them a real work, to put them on telemarketing activity, which is not always easy. It has worked well, definitely in some markets, and it has not worked so well in some others for different reasons, ability to deal with changes. And also, I'm not one who thinks that a good face-to-face frontliner is a good face-to-face telemarketer. I don't believe that. You need to do training. It's a very different thing. In the street, you play with your body language, and on the phone, obviously, it's your voice, and it's a very different way to things to handle. The second challenge is challenge. I don't know if it's a challenge, but it's definitely a challenge that we need to make. It's a communication to our donors. It's not a typical emergency. We cannot deal with this emergency the same way we're dealing with other emergencies. So obviously, the big difference is that our audiences are facing the problem. So it's how you communicate on COVID in a refugee camp, on the preparedness around that for us, UNHCR, when people are facing families hit by COVID at the same time. And so obviously, you have to think about the approach. I know we've been doing some programs, but when you call someone with 60-year-old, you cannot just do like this and do your pitch. You need to have a conversation which is about, hey, you're there. And so what we've been trying to do is, first when we call it, how are you doing? to take care of our donors, but really with a commitment, being able to answer to the question if they have some questions, which is not easy because it's not our role. And then to explain them in terms of preparedness, how do we work within UNHCR for people of concern around that. And so you see at the end of the day, when we need to do fundraising also, the ask is much shorter. We've been doing it in very soft ways, sometimes in several steps. One step, which is just to deliver information and later on to come with a soft life. That's a very different way to communicate with people. And I think it's not only these 2-3 months. I think we will need to keep that for at least 2020 and beyond 2020 in the way we approach our communication with donors. It goes also to the question, who is communicating? Is it always UNHCR speaking? Or do we give more opportunity for celebrities, for social influencers, to be part and to speak on our behalf, to speak in our name? Well, practically for the charity as UNHCR, when we're working, for instance, the biggest refugee camp in the world, it's in Bangladesh. It's almost 1 million Rohingya people in a camp, Kutupalong, close to Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh. So the issue when you are in a COVID situation is that basically you want to protect them as much as possible, and you need to protect your staff as much as possible. So in terms of working condition, it is very difficult because we have hundreds of staff working in Bangladesh, but we cannot have the same way to work and the same way to go in the camps or even to go in host communities than before. So obviously we are practicing also social distancing. We're trying to work with also internet, with video communication, but at one moment we need to deliver. So it's obviously to get adapted to this, but we've been doing that, in the past, and we've been learning from Ebola in Africa. We've been learning all these kind of things through different crises and epidemics. So but it's differently. It's a very different way to work, definitely. And it's the same with content. We need content to do fundraising, but you cannot just send people like that, a videographer and all this kind of thing. So yeah, you need to adapt for this too. Yes, maybe one which I think as a regional manager, the way you work in regional manager, you work obviously with different kind of people and different markets, different kind of people, and different ways to work. What I've learned through a crisis like this is that you need to move fast. That's a must.
Yeah.
You need to take more risks. You need to accept risk. You cannot have a list of 20 questions to answer for days before making a decision.
Yeah.
You need to move, and then you adapt, but you need to move. And quite clearly, what we can see in our fundraising activity is that the markets who have been able to move fast, to make decisions, to test, and through digital, you can test very easily and with not that much risk, as the one we've been taking the opportunities and who are, I would say, the most successful today. Okay, it was great to talk with all of you guys. I think we are all in uncertain times, but I think the main message for me is to keep positive, be prepared for the worst, but let's keep positive, and to all of you, stay safe and well.